They were born in bloody circumstance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. A voice from the underground, given room to breathe, not but be drowned. So die if you get the chance. Better men than you've been left this dance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. I have seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down. My brothers on the ground, I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me away. To go, leave me, run like you never did. No, believe me, run like you've never run before.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog. I am Cammy Black, and joining me this evening, we've got John Anderson. Good evening, John.
Good evening.
In the waiting room, and you can't see him right now, is Iain here? He looked like he's waving at us. He looked like he was about to go for a pee. So, Iain, if you want to go for a pee, do you need a pee? Give me a thumbs up if you do. Blink twice if you're... No, he's good. I'm going to admit Iain. Good evening, Iain.
Hey.
Hey, hello. No,
You looked slightly startled when you came in as the theme tune was playing, and you looked like you were going to go off and get something.
I was being called on by the missus in the kitchen. And
Does
I was
she
like,
need you?
Not particularly.
That's fine. We can carry
I don't
on.
think she really needs me. Does anyone truly need anyone? You know, it's a very French
Existential question to
Yeah.
start the evening. Yeah, so we're pre-France week. That game is going ahead, so we don't have to go into great details on that, although we may touch upon details of that later on in the podcast. We are still, as we are recording this, waiting on the outcome of Xander Ferguson's appeal against his red card. Or the appeal against the red card, it should be. So we're still waiting for that. We've got lots of people in the comments. We've got Brian Scrooby says free Xander. Alan McDonald says hashtag Zandbags is innocent. Hashtag justice for Xander we'll get on to that as well, no doubt.
Someone was suggesting that it's possible that his hearing is going to last longer than his ban.
I made a joke that he was his child will make a debut for Scotland before we get the outcome of the ban. Probably playing something like rollerball, some violent future sport.
Do you remember when it was before the quarterfinal, against Australia, and it was Johnny Gray and Ross Ford had both been cited, and we were waiting on justice for those two. And I remember it was really late at night when that came through. I was sitting up, and I remember it was the pen in particular. It just kept me going all night with some absolute cracking one-liners regarding that. So hopefully we're not on a finishing up at 3 a.m. job tonight for Xander.
It's a day and a half now. I was saying at this stage, given that there's going to be billable hours involved from a barrister, we must be getting towards what Mark Dodson's salary plus bonuses at this stage in terms of the amount we're paying a barrister.
I just think that the disciplinary committee, their delivery driver is taking particularly long to get.
I've got a wee email saying your delivery's 20 minutes late, mate.
You can order groceries through Uber Eats, I think. Okay. So maybe someone sent the biscuits direct. Xander's on the Uber Eats, sent to the wrong address.
Nice.
Or if your order items is unavailable, please call it.
We've substituted the biscuits for cream crackers with no cheese.
That's it. Xander's now banned for 52 weeks.
We'll come on to that later in the show, no doubt. Don't forget you can follow us and watch us live. We're live on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter right now at the minute. You can also download this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, and all other good podcast apps. If you do listen on Apple Podcasts, then leave us a little review. We haven't had any this week, which is good because we haven't had any bad ones. That's what we're trying to avoid. But if you want to leave us a little 5-star review on there, we will read it out on the podcast. You can also sign up for our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast, for £3 a month, you get onto the Richie Vernon Thunderdome, and that will get you access to exclusive content and ad-free versions of the podcast. And at the minute, John and I and Iain and whoever's free are doing little kind of mini Only Finns podcasts when the teams are announced during the Six Nations, just to have a wee chat about that. So they're good fun. There's lots of stuff already on there that's worth catching up with. If you pay £5 a month or more, which you can choose to do, then you get into the Dougie Donnelly Members Lounge. And if you're in the Dougie Donnelly Members Lounge, you get well looked after, but you also get your name read out on the podcast. So we've had nobody admitted. It's a very exclusive club. No one's been admitted this week, although we have had a couple of new entrants to the heated venue that is the Richie Vernon Thunderdome. So we welcome you all. We are also brought to you in partnership with Manscaped. This bit of the podcast does not take 14 minutes, as someone told me the other day. We only talk about this very briefly. But we are sponsored by Manscaped. If you go to manscaped.com/Scottish Rugby, you can get 20% off plus free shipping on any of their products. So we've got, I've got some examples here. You can have, this is the Weed Whacker. I wouldn't recommend using it on actual weeds because you'll be there all day, but it's for going up your nose and your ears. It's very, I will say that's very efficient, and you can angle it, and I quite like it. It didn't pull as much as my previous little nose hair trimmer.
It's not much use for me on one nostril because my nose is kind of smashed. Like the left nostril is goosed, so it's not very accurate for getting in there.
Are you saying there's a niche here?
Do we need some design feedback for rugby players with smashed noses?
Yes, and also with the seen as the barbers. I mean, this is obviously no issue for John, but as barber shops are going to be shut till the April 26th, we get sent new blades with the eau de toilette.
We did, yes.
Yeah, which I've not put the new blade on yet, so I think I might have to shave my head with the new blade.
Yes.
Well, so this is what Ian's talking about. You get this. This is the it's called the full kit. You get off there as well. So you get your personal groomer, which you can use on your face. I have used it for long hairs on your face. Maybe not full beard, but it's good for a wee trimmer. But you use it down below. It's very gentle. In the kit, you also get some crop reviver, which is ball toner.
top-notch stuff. That's
Top-notch stuff.
my go-to.
And some
Moisturiser.
crop preserver, which is ball deodorant, so leaving you smelling really nice and fresh downstairs. So yeah, we're coming out of lockdown. You want to get yourself looking nice and fresh for the ladies or gentlemen. Do you know what I mean? It's been a while for some of you locked up alone, and you want to make a good impression. So that's what you need to do. Go to manscaped.com/Scottish Rugby. Get 20% off. Make yourself look presentable for the ladies and gentlemen when you come out of lockdown.
At least you look presentable from the waist down. I mean, upwards, that's your issue, man.
That's a you problem.
Or maybe if you're married, and you just want to give your wife a little surprise, or husband, or partner. There's that as well.
No.
You got to cut their name in initials.
No. How hairy are you?
I think he's more referring.
I think
to
at this point you probably need to
hurt.
stop. My mother listens to this podcast, so let's move on.
Yes, that's why I restrained myself from saying anything there.
I'm pleased you restrained yourself unlike last week. We'll have no Xander slander this early in the podcast, Iain. Here.
Yes, I've got plenty lined up.
Bit of news this week, and we'll go through that first, and then we'll get on to the game itself. So the European rugby is still happening, apparently. People are still playing rugby, domestic rugby and European rugby. So the European Champions and Challenge Cup knockout schedule has been revealed. Glasgow and Edinburgh are through to the knockout stages, despite not really seeming to have played many games. I assume because
played once, didn't they?
Yeah.
They got pummeled off Exeter.
And have somehow made it through the last 16.
Shows how rubbish the Challenge Cup is, which kind of puts in context Edinburgh's previous efforts.
Oh,
I was waiting for that.
I need to get you an Edinburgh klaxon, John. You've got the Wolf klaxon.
Wait, that's the Challenge Cup, which has been won by current Glasgow Warriors coach Danny Wilson. Thank you very much. So we'll have a list of that, John.
Yeah, but that was when he was with those blue people doing in the Cardiff town. So we're not having none of that.
So the schedule's been revealed anyway. There's probably, given the way things are going, there's probably more of a chance of that happening now. So that's going to take, the draw for competitions will take place on the 9th of March, and the matches are going to be played on the 2nd to 4th of April. So unless everybody in various teams gets struck down with COVID, and there's a fair prospect of those going ahead. The SRU have confirmed that the last two games, surprise, and this shocked me actually, that the last two games of the Six Nations at Murrayfield, there's going to be no fans there. Who could have known?
Who'd have thunk it? I
know. I mean, certainly not those people that forked out a fortune for those Murrayfield passes.
How much were those Murrayfield passes? Because I've never had.
I don't think they were an awful lot. I think was it 40 quid or something for a goal?
40 quid for the Richie Gray package, and
I have to say, I was a wee bit annoyed at when I forked out 55 quid to have me and John's good personal friend Andrew, we could get our names put on a board at Scotstoun. I was like, these don't seem like guys who've paid 55 quid for hee-haw just to have their name on a board. It's on a small advertising board, and they've not even sent us a picture of it. I saw Andy's name in it. Andy's name did happen to be on it, on the one picture I've seen, but the rest of us were like, all right, how do I know my name is there? It's not like I've got a particularly long name.
I think we need to make a request now. We need photographic evidence from the Glasgow Warriors media team that Iain and John's names are actually on that board somewhere.
Oh, John's wouldn't be. John. No.
I did not.
The media departments don't like us enough already. I don't think we should go push them again.
Well, I was going to suggest you go to Scotstoun and just jump over the fence, mate, and go and check it out. So, but they probably won't like that either.
No, it was after the hills. That's what the memberships were called. They were named after hills, weren't they?
Aye, when we changed it to second rows.
So. I don't think they were that. I don't think there's the Nevis and the McAdoo membership, wasn't there?
Yep.
Or McAdoo. I like to call it the McAdoo because it sounds funnier.
Sounds like a funny dance.
I don't think it was significant amounts of money, but anyway, all those people are going to be fairly up. But they got the name on the wall of the the tunnel at Murrayfield that nobody will ever see. But fair play.
No, apparently, I think I know a few people who have those memberships, and they said they'd been sent a picture. If they asked for it, they could be sent a picture of where their name is on those walls. That has not been offered to us Glasgow Warriors fans, possibly because Scotland's about to collapse.
It's pretty windy up here just now, actually.
Leaking roof. I got woken up at 7 o'clock yesterday by the sound of dripping.
In the morning?
Yes.
Worth clarifying.
Just to know what is worth clarifying.
Depends what time zone you're in. Yeah, I was like, oh God, that's leaking now. Yeah, so we have some leaky roof issues. There's someone meant to be coming around tomorrow to check it again, but there's been like 5 of them out in the last year, and they go, all you do is you get a factors bill through going, "Aye, we fixed your roof." You're like, "No, you effing haven't."
If anyone knows a good roofer, the email is podcast@scottishrugbyblog.co.uk and we'll get in touch.
One who doesn't leave broken tiles on the roof, and apparently one of our residents, he went on the roof himself and he said, "Yeah, there's like old satellite dishes that they haven't bothered taking down and loads of broken tiles." I was like, "Yeah, so tradespeople."
Maybe what's the name of maybe it's not satellite dishes. Maybe it's like the film Batteries Not Included, and they're just
I love that.
They're dead baby aliens on your roof.
What? No, that's tragic. And they were left there by Xander Fagerson.
Left to die. Anyway, well, let's move on. Other news. Kelly Brown's leaving Glasgow Warriors, which was a bit of a surprise, but I have to say it was wonderful to see how honest he was about the reason. He was really honest and open that his family just haven't settled in Glasgow, understandably, because it's been locked down. He's been given a job opportunity down in London, which is presumably Saracens, or he's going to be coaching at some rich school somewhere.
As soon as it was mentioned that there was going to be a bit of a coaching reshuffle at Saracens, Kelly Brown's name was immediately brought up, and the Glasgow forums were all very alive with the idea that Kelly might be on his way. So it wasn't a huge surprise to see it confirmed, but again, fair play to him, being completely forthright about it. Family's not settled, but his life was down south for many, many years. So, fair play to him, and off he goes.
We don't often see it, do we, Iain, though? Like that kind of honesty in a press release. That can normally be like, oh, it's another opportunity and off I go. But like to be kind of fairly open that the family haven't settled and that's why he's moving on is quite refreshing, really.
Yeah, definitely very kind of, glad. Well, I'm obviously sad to see him go, but he has his reasons. It's the same with Jake Ball moving from Wales back to Australia, because he's not even seen one of his kids now, I believe.
It was like over a year.
Yeah, and obviously, this current state of affairs is not conducive to sort of family living as such, especially if you're away from people. I mean, it's a bit of a shame to see him go. I just wonder what incidental benefits Nigel Ray has offered him. Anyway,
let's move on again. We still no update on Xander Ferguson's Zandban. Hopefully more news of that as we come. Nick Haining has signed an Edinburgh contract extension. Edinburgh Rugby owe us some money now because they put a photograph of Billy Elliott on the announcement that he'd signed the contract extension. That's after we edited his Wikipedia page and someone in the... I edited his Wikipedia. I was trying to give a share. I edited his Wikipedia page. Said he was a ballet prodigy as a youngster, and then that got repeated in a couple of fairly major newspapers. But so anyway, it's nice to see them carrying on with the joke. If it's anything like the other media outlet that stole one of my jokes, they at least coughed up 40 quid for the.
You got 40 quid for a picture. I got 70 quid for like 10 hours work.
Hey, I don't make the rules, Iain.
Check you guys getting measures measuring it out. Calm your beans,
Also,
guys.
like, I would like to find out,
An
like,
hour's
Nick,
work, guys. An hour's work. That's all I'm going to say it was.
It wasn't
Nick
even an hour's
Herring's-
work. Mine wasn't even an hour's work.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I travelled for longer to get down south to do my work, but and the abuse I took after it probably
Well,
was.
to be fair, that was
What
danger
about,
money, John.
what about Nick Herring's pal, or Nick Herring, who had said that it was his pal who had updated
Yeah.
Wikipedia. Has Nick discovered that this pal is a lying swine?
Yeah, I know.
Total fake news.
Yeah. I don't think there's any other big news coming up outside of kind of the Scotland-France match, which we'll come on to. There's not really anything from either of you. Ian, you look like you're going to say something.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Glasgow kids have been signed.
Of course, yes.
Ollie Smith, Rufus McLean. I think those are the only two that have
Those
signed
two, yeah.
pro contracts for the first time.
Ollie Smith's was in particular very creatively done because they sort of teased it earlier on today with spot our most recent signing in the crowd, and it was a picture of the Pro 12 win, and like lots of people obviously hadn't clicked that they were saying this is a person who's in the crowd somewhere. And they were going, oh, look, oh, it's Richie Vernon at 13. Oh, DTH at 14. Oh, it might be, is Mark Bennett coming back? It's like, he's not even in the picture, guys. Come on, seriously. But young Ollie Smith was in the picture in Glasgow very helpfully using the wonder of Microsoft Paint, circled Ollie for us in a later tweet.
Are you guys...
Well, the Mini Murrayfield, that's now finished. That's also big news, isn't
We
it?
covered that last week, didn't we? Did that last week. You were here.
I know, but I don't pay attention.
You were too busy focused on slandering Xander Ferguson and accusing him of mass murder.
Do you don't remember I put up a picture of a gazebo, mate?
Oh, I do vaguely now, but you know, all the days blend into one. You know,
They do, I know. The sooner we can get you outside for some fresh air, Ian, the better.
I went for a walk the other day. It's the outside. I noticed it wasn't quite like that Cormac McCarthy book, The Road. So I got home safe, and I didn't have a shopping trolley. Like, if anyone's not read or seen the movie The Road, you will have no idea what's going on here. But yeah, it's pretty bleak.
It's not a Lockdown 3 read. That's all I'm going to say.
Pretty much. I mean, to be fair, every walk I do with the kids at the minute descends into the road. Push my buttons that much. Went on a walk today. Went down the pond, and there were. It's mating season for the frogs. No, it's mating season for the frogs. There was a froggy.
A frog.
Or somebody who I messaged about it said it was frogs porn. I like that. A froggy, yeah. There was a froggy down by the pond, so I had to explain that.
There's a bit
That
of
was fun.
maybe a Patreon special regarding wildlife. I don't know how we're going to relate it to like rugby in any way, shape, or form, but I have a quite uncanny knowledge of ducks now. I've been learning a lot about ducks recently.
Did you see that article I'd shared on our dear friend Rona Sweeting's Facebook comment about the Ig Nobel Prize of 2004, I think it was, where a Dutch scientist had watched a duck, as he's doing his scientific work, a duck flew into the window, then dropped down dead. And then he proceeded to watch both mallards. A mallard had ploughed into the wall, dropped down dead, and then another mallard had his wicked way with it.
So if you hadn't went down that route, I was going to suggest that the mallard was simply playing Warren Gatlin ball.
No,
but...
that mallard was Xander Ferguson. No, well, it's like ducks are horrible.
It was Xander all along. That's a One Division reference.
Let's get some rugby talked about, Cammy, quickly.
Yeah. Let's move on. So we've not got much. We've not got we've not got loads to talk about this week. There's no rugby. Well, there was. Do you want to talk about the rugby at the weekend? Was the rugby at the weekend?
There was, but I mean, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Is kind of the summary we came up with.
Is that right, John? Are we sure it wasn't as bad as it could have been?
I mean,
Go on, give me two positives from the Glasgow game.
we could have been pumped a lot more, and the commentary team were not as gloaty as I thought they would be.
Okay, Iain.
I would say positives from that, like because Ulster have been so effective at maul attack. What with Dan McFarland in charge there, and they put when they put like 50 points on Edinburgh, they scored I think 5 or 6 tries off the back of mauls.
Yep.
But we Richie Gray, Leon Nakarawa, and Rob Harley in that maul defence. Glasgow did a really damn good job of trying to stop them. And it was only like Jamie Dobie had a pretty good game. It's just when he threw that intercept pass, which it ended up with Michael Lowry scoring a really good try for Ulster, that killed us. So Glasgow weren't as horrific defending as they had been previously. So, that's a bonus. And also, like I said in my match report, Richie Gray really is a damn good player. Now that he's back fit, you see him like he's so good at like not just the line-out presence, obviously, but he shifts for a guy of his size. He gets about, he puts his tackles in, he hits breaks down. I don't know what they feed those grey boys, but those lads just work all the time.
He's lost. He's shifted a bit of beef as well since coming back for France as well. He's looking much leaner, and that seems to suit him quite well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely, he's looking again like I think it's unfair to compare, with obviously in his pomp when he was a Lion and all that. But he's starting to he's looking like a smarter player than that as well, which he's still got all that kind of all that talent, all that ball playing ability that he had, obviously with the technical, the line out, the specialities and stuff like that. But then you add in, he just seems like a more clever player these days, which is really useful.
I mean, he's only 31, actually, looking at it. You forget that because he was around when he was so young. So 31 within this World Cup cycle, I think probably takes him to 34, 35 come the next World Cup.
33 even?
34, yeah.
33, 34, which isn't, given he's had injuries, he's, he's having his game time managed now. It's not, I think we all see him as this veteran who's kind of just plugging a gap for Scotland, but actually he can do a real job there for Scotland for the remainder of the cycle right through to the World Cup if he keeps fit and if he keeps going the way he's going.
Especially if you look at Alan Wynne-Jones, who's older than Richie Gray would be. Alan Wynne-Jones is older now than Richie Gray could potentially be. So I think for a second row, I mean he doesn't rely on pace, so I don't see why he couldn't. Obviously, he's going to have his wee brother and Scott Cummings, particularly to try and shove it away. But there's absolutely no reason whatsoever why Richie Gray can't still play at international level.
You could make an argument to say that Alwyn Jones is the only thing that's lasted longer than Xander Fagerson's trial.
The other thing of Adam Hastings, maybe a bit of a surprise that he was back at the weekend. Kind of rumoured, I think that he's, we'd seen him in camp with Scotland, but did okay. I thought he didn't do much wrong. It was a good kind of. He said himself he was quite nervous going out again. Iain?
Well, it just seems to be a constant with certain people on certain forums that they just want to pillory Adam Hastings, either for the fact that he's only in the team because of his parentage, or he's absolutely duff. I didn't think he was that bad the other day. And then I made my little suggestion about how we could get some Cats at the Rave back going. And because who else do we have that could possibly come in and play at 12, apart from Sam Johnson, who is also still coming back from injury, Matt Scott, who Townsend doesn't seem to fancy, because he wants a second playmaker at 12. So I mean, why can't we have the cats that rave?
I
And
think
it's not
this is
like
I mean, this is, I know we're kind of skipping ahead, but that's why I think as an option he offers more than Jaco van der Walt. And it's not, I'm not comparing them like for like as players, but just in terms of you look at the wider story within the Scotland 23, and he can cover fullback, and he comes in at 10. I think even like was that the Georgia game, he shifted out to 12 and Finn covered.
He can cover both,
10.
comfortably. Yeah, I think it was good. It was great to see him back, and as you say, I mean, I think people were very unfair on him because if anyone who's had 3 months off their work and they've been thrown in on a Monday morning and had to survive that, will know fine well that it is brutal. And when you add in that you're up against a very, very physical Ulster team who have been going pretty good guns, I thought he'd done okay. He was certainly rusty. But there was the flashes of what you get with Hastings. Hastings is a very different player to Russell. He's more direct. He's more likely to run the ball, which keeps defences honest. And I think there is an argument certainly for some part of the game, which we'll cover. There is an argument for that 10-12, him and Russell, but I think it's just great. It's funny how, in fact, I'm going to save it for Hands in the Ruck. Let's leave it there. I'll save it for Hands in the Ruck.
Okay. And the other game then, Edinburgh Munster, because if I don't mention it, I'll get accused of Glasgow bias.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people kind of calling for, not calling for Richard Cockerell's head as such, but kind of wondering whether or not, whether Edinburgh are moving forward. And I think it's worth remembering that we're in the middle of a pandemic and this is not a normal season. I mean, it's hard to muster any interest in the Pro 14 at the best of times, given that it's effectively a way for Wales, Ireland, and Scotland to get their international players some game time in between the Six Nations, the autumn tests, and the summer. But at the minute, oh God, it's so stop-start and so meaningless. It seems so meaningless at the minute. I know it's hard. We're saying that with I say that with the privilege of being. I don't really have any skim in the game with Glasgow or Edinburgh, but it just, I know that neither of them are doing particularly well, but what's the point? And there must be an element of that with the players as well, you would think, John.
Yeah, I think because they changed the conference system yet again, and because we're having the Super Mario Cup in April apparently, when that's not going to happen. So it's only the top two that are going forward to the final that will get played, but even the full fixtures won't be completed by then. It's just a farce, right? It's just a complete farce. There isn't any, as you say, it is hard to get excited about it from a competitive standpoint. I'm not going to use Iain's phrase previously and say that the games are totally meaningless, but they are bordering on meaningless. In that, if they cancelled it tomorrow, nobody would actually be that bothered. Frankly, fine, right, fine. Let's play some more. Let's play Edinburgh a few more times and just, hopefully beat them a few times. Then we can rub it in.
Yeah, Iain, what was your take on that Edinburgh game? Do you think Edinburgh kind of, maybe heads are looking ahead to next season rather than being where they are at the minute, or where they should be?
Yeah, well, I mean, now that the SRU have received that government grant, and it means that both Danny Wilson and Richard Cockerell are looking forward and have secured players on new contracts. This season is, it always has been a bit of a busted flush. I think people calling for Cockerell's head, I've not seen that myself, but anyone who's calling for Cockerell to go should maybe just shut the hell up. Because, if you look at where Edinburgh were before he came in and where they are now, it's completely different. Statistically, I've looked at the Pro 14's official site, and Glasgow and Edinburgh, Glasgow, it's the weird thing about Glasgow. Glasgow are third in the attacking stats overall, but it's just both teams are so far down in terms of kicking and discipline, and that's because we're all going on about how the kicking game is so important. Edinburgh just outside of Jaco van der Vault, right? They don't have it. Chamberlain. Whenever I've seen Chamberlain playing, like you can see he's trying to like throw a pass out here, but they just don't have that any cohesion whatsoever. And then Pyrgos is putting up some really duff box kicks. They are struggling this season. And then they're suffering really bad injuries. Like Andrew Davidson had to go off on a stretcher the other day, which looked really nasty. But I think they're like both teams seem to. They're not playing hideously badly, but then they're just at clutch points. They are defending like absolute school children and getting torn apart during little segments when they get themselves back in the game. It's particularly against Ulster, both at Edinburgh and Glasgow. When Edinburgh got tanked off at Ulster about 2 months ago, they came back into the game and nearly equalised. Apart from, I think it was James Johnson was just offside as he went to chase down a kick that hit the post. They just need to tighten these things up.
Yeah, it's very small margins, eh?
And also, they're missing, like, even though like Edinburgh can call in guys like Crosby and Miller, who we know are talented and have potential, they ain't getting game time. But then also they're missing the big clutch players, the guys like Duhan who can make something out of nothing. And if you don't have, especially for Edinburgh, who rely on counter-attack, or just that couple of phases where they can just like turn it to one guy who can pummel through, that's what's killing them. They ain't getting the points.
Yes. I think it's like a cursed monkey paw in that you can't have good performances from the pro teams at the same time as the international teams doing okay.
Well, Glasgow used to be able to do that when we had that ridiculously, a squad of outstanding sort of recruits.
Yeah, we basically had like, if you basically enchant man went in and like cheated in the editor and like gave all your kids like 199 potential, and then just watch them turn into a team of worldies, and then they all leave for Barcelona.
John,
Basically that.
You don't need the editor. All you needed to do was sign Tonton Zola Makoko.
Well, yes, of course. That's it.
But that's like Scotland. Glasgow back in the day. I've even seen during Six Nations, Glasgow put out a team with likes of Nico, Josh Strauss, and all sorts, and we get beat at home by Dragons. Right? That shouldn't happen. But and it even shouldn't happen nowadays. Like it was Jason Tovey who ended up at Jason. Well, I always get the Tovies mixed up. What one's Russell Tovey? What one's Jason? Tovey?
Jason
Russell Tovey's the actor.
Right. One of them's the
Jason was
actor.
the Edinburgh guy.
Yeah, and he played out his skin. But usually Glasgow could rely on your Strausses, Matt Olalu, DTH to see us through those periods. Now we don't have that.
Well, and maybe you're building to it. That seems to be where the kind of recruitment's gone in the last couple of weeks, that there's going to be these players coming in that can fill that role. It'll just be a question of whether they're going to be whether it's another kind of duff, Southern Hemisphere signing for Glasgow, one of the better ones. So we just have to see.
Yeah, we really don't have a good record on New Zealanders, so we need to. It's been a long time since we've had a good New Zealander.
See, actually, look, Corey Flynn seemed to start to come on to a game and then get canned. His first few times out, he was absolutely muck. And you're like, this guy's a World Cup winner. Why is
I judge Corey Flynn purely on his warm-up routine with him and Grant Stewart in the main stand at Scotstoun, and honestly, he nearly took out the bloody Martha's thing. He was so far off his throws, it was hilarious.
Like with a pair of them throwing darts, you're probably going to lose an eye.
Yeah, it was dangerous. Like, there should have been health warnings. Big Brian should have been putting out a health warning.
And he's high vis vest at the start of the game.
Vest.
Okay. Shall we? There's still no news on Xander Ferguson as we record this.
I'm keeping refreshing. I'm on the case, guys.
I'm going to assume that what's going to happen is we're going to stop recording this, and they're going to announce the outcome, and this podcast is going to be hideously out of date. Like
And then we'll just go
within-
straight back on it.
just straight back
Breaking
on it,
news.
aye. So it's France at the weekend. The game is on. That was confirmed today. The French squad up until now had been dropping like coronavirus-ridden flies. There were 10 players at one point. I think we're out with coronavirus. I think it might be 11 is the final total. Fabien Galtier, the French head coach, was one of the first to come down with it. Now, today it's come out in the French press that although the French Rugby Union initially blamed a physio for causing the outbreak, it was actually Fabien Galtier himself who allegedly has broken the bubble.
What a merd bag.
Yeah. Oh, he's in trouble. Galtier's come along and he
Dissect
burst
the
the bubble. I can only imagine it's something incredibly French, like he was off to see his mistress and he'll be forgiven instantly by everyone in France. This is okay. He was off to have sex with his mistress.
Shitting cigarettes with his in the boudoir.
Smoking unfiltered galois while reading porn.
And we are all racists.
Xenophobic. Get it right, John.
That's a good point.
In Scots law, it's the same thing, apparently.
Oh, is it?
So,
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
if
Cammy
any
said
French
this-
people,
I can
if
probably
any
back
French
up.
people want to sue us, come ahead. We're ready
Cam-
for you.
I
Cammy
think we're
safe.
okay because I think the joke itself is based on the fact that I think it's still legal to take a mistress in France. They
And
certainly still have relaxed laws about incest. Let's say that. Anyway, let's move on.
Wow. And I'm the one
It
that
was
gets
in
in
the
trouble
Guardian the other week. I read it in the Guardian the other week.
That took a turn.
Anyway,
usually. Is that why Xander Fagers wants to go and play in France? Is that what you're saying?
because you can take a mistress, Ian. Because you can take a mistress, you mean?
Oh, come on, guys.
I don't know, man. You said it.
Throw us a bone here. Come on. Jeez. Whew. I am putting out an official statement tomorrow, distancing myself from any comments you pair have made.
Look, it's
tonight.
not our fault. We're sat here. We're nothing to do but refresh Twitter feeds trying to find an update on his ban.
It's,
Got to fill dead air somehow.
it's World Rugby's fault.
We'll send them the legal bill.
Breaking reports are surfacing that 2018 Wimbledon semi-finals John Isner and Kevin Anderson are on the Six Nations committee assessing Xander Fagerson's appeal. That was one of the ones that went on for about.
That's brilliant. Was that final set that finished? What was it? 50, 60
That
or
was,
something?
yeah, it was. Then it was Desner who one that went on for about 14 days.
And then they didn't even give the poor sod another day's break. They're like, nah,
I
mate, you're
know.
back on court. They're like,
It puts the Japanese complaint at the 2015 World Cup about rest days. It puts that in context slightly, doesn't it? It's like, oh yeah, he's only got 4 days. These guys played for 4 days.
Right, I'm just going to clarify something, just so we don't get sued. Adultery has not been a crime in France since 1975, but the French court has ruled that it's okay to publicly promote infidelity. There you go.
Adultery's not a crime at all, is it? Or maybe
It's not a
isn't.
crime,
Or
but
it
it's
was
not.
in France. I mean, it's frowned upon, obviously,
Not in France.
allegedly.
So there we go. Anyway, let's move on from French adultery laws. Sean Edwards has been in charge this week, so we can expect the entire French squad to turn up confused and scared this week.
Thought you were going to make a joke about adultery. Sean Edwards and the
No.
French squad there.
No, we'd never make a joke about that, about Sean Edwards in adultery. He was married to Heather Small from the M People.
Was he really?
Yeah,
Wow.
true story.
Whoa,
He's got a child with
Whoa.
Heather Small from M People.
Whoa. Mind blown.
There
I'm
you go.
not going to do it here, but like John, I'm quite good at like impressions, accents.
You like an impression? You do?
I do a pretty good Heather Small. I'm not doing it live though.
What?
No, we'll save that. We'll save that for the patrons.
A sudden influx of £5 a month
That's
has
gonna,
come in.
yeah. Especially if you want
We'll get Iain to perform the entirety of What Have You Done Today
Moving
to
on
make
up.
yourself feel proud. Okay. So France then. It's a depleted French squad. At this stage, as we record, we don't know what Team Scotland are going to put out. We're recording Wednesday night. We think the squad's going to be announced tomorrow. For Scotland, France, probably Friday. It's a hard one to read, John. I mean, maybe expecting Adam Hastings back in the reckoning. We've had Rob Harley called up, I assume, just in case the French called up a load of D2 players to fight. So they'll throw Rob Harley in there in the mix. But it's a difficult one to call because it's not the France team that have been winning plaudits that we're going to end up playing on Sunday.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But it is a French team that should absolutely be treated with the utmost respect, because they've been in this situation before, obviously in the autumn, due to the French club rugby situation being utterly bonkers. They had to play the final of the Autumn Nations Cup with a very depleted squad, and fair enough, yeah, it was only England, but they still almost beat them, unlike us. But so, playground rules suggest we should win. But yeah, I think Scotland it is going to be an interesting one. I think you will see some changes. I think the way that we'll play against France will be slightly different to perhaps how we sort of went with England. It was kind of shock and awe. We really went after them. With Wales, we started playing quite loose, and then obviously circumstances tightened us up a bit. But with France, it's going to be, I think we are going to try and really physically go after them, and that's why you're seeing guys like maybe Rob Harley coming in. You'll see Adam Hastings probably on the bench to kind of give that physical running game as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see Sam Johnston there as well. He was fantastic actually against Ulster. He carried so well, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him back as well. So I think it is interesting, but France are probably still favourites, and that's the level of depth they have. They're probably still favourites, but we need to be, if we're going to beat them in Paris, this is as good a chance as we're going to get.
Yeah, Iain, it's definitely going to be a physical game. I think, and maybe Scotland have stood up to that. Even against Wales, when with down to 14 men, they were still winning the physical battle. Maybe Rob Harley's in there to kind of beast everybody in training this week.
Well, Harley quite often gets called into the squad just as sort of training member.
Yep.
And we know he can cover lock and back row. I wouldn't expect him to be in the 23. I think if you were going to call anyone in the 23 to call a lock back row, they would have. I don't know if you'd call it breaking protocol, but I know obviously there's issues around in calling up English players, but they would have pulled Sam Skinner in. So I think Harley is there just for training purposes. I don't know if it's maybe looking at line-out options, because we know Harley's a great line-out jumper. But the thing is, right, France have got such a large player squad, like a pool. Like, I think they've probably got at least 3 or 4 times the number of professionally contracted players as compared to Scotland. So we know there's going to be a lot of quality in there. And it's just about dealing with those issues, because we look at the last time we played France, we ended up with no 10. We had Pete Horn playing at 10, and we were rank. It was our worst game 2 years ago. We just fired no shots whatsoever. John, this was why I had said that I wouldn't. I considered Russell and Hastings to be a 10-12 start. Because of the way France play, and because we know how Sean Edwards likes to use a blitz defence, he can chip over the top or try and be a bit cute around that first pass area. And France don't tend to run through the 10-12 channel. They don't have like Bastro and that anymore. They will want to throw it a wee bit wide. Any forward carries will usually come from the likes of Greg Aldrich. So that they'll make the hard yards through the forwards where you expect forwards to meet them, but anything going through the backs would go wider or be waiting on something magical from Dupont. And obviously we know Dupont is out. So I'm not massively terrified. I do think that, like I said, France have obviously got so much strength and depth. They will put out a damn good side. Just maybe not as great as the first 15, which has Dupont, Ntamak, and Olivon, for example.
Yeah. So it's not looking... all is not lost this weekend. And even with a full-strength side, and this maybe, they didn't look like world beaters against Ireland, John. I think for all that there are some individual players in France that are getting applauded, like Dupont and, quite rightly, Ntamak when he's been fit, and even Jalabert, as obviously they've got two very good, if not world-class 10s in France at the minute. But it has to be said that, they didn't look kind of convincing against Ireland.
Yeah, I think that is fair. I think that maybe the criticism of them was that so this French team does have that potential, and I'm not going down the usual cliche of what French side's going to turn up. It's not like that. They've got young players who, if you get the right game plan against them, they can struggle. And Ireland have... I'm going to annoy all our Irish listeners here, but I don't mind. Ireland have a game plan that drags teams down to their level. I don't think Ireland are actually that great, to be honest, and they drag teams down to their level. And I think they've done that with France really well, and they've done that to us so much recently that it's infuriating, and it's probably why I'm making this hasty statement. But I stand by it. This is the hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah. The other thing, I suppose, Iain, is the kicking game from Scotland is that you've got, I think Dulin for France is still in the squad. He's not come down with COVID, and his kicking's pretty decent from fullback.
Oh, Dylan's down, I think.
Is he down?
Yeah.
Oh, he's one of the 11.
It's usually Ramos. Ramos has been playing at 15 recently, and he's got a thumper of a boot.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So the French, it's going to be interesting to see, because that Scottish kicking game, they tried it. They did
Boutier, sorry, it's Boutier. Antoine Boutier is the guy with a massive boot on him.
So Scotland did that kicking game very effectively against England. Didn't do it maybe as well as they had done against Wales, but it had some success with it. But I mean, it's going to be, they're coming up against a team now with some very good, despite they're down to the kind of the bare bones, as it were, as much as France are back to the bare bones, they're going to almost come up against, another very good kicking team.
Yeah, particularly with Hogg, he can thump them from deep. The only thing could possibly, the French will know about Finn Russell, because he's been tearing them to shreds week in, week out. But again, this is always the thing with me. Something I say about Russell is that now that teams know how terrifying he can be, he uses that to his advantage. He's like, I can take it to the line, I might take it to the line, but I might not. I might just sit back here and then just put a wee kick through. And this is one of the great advantages of Finn Russell, who is one of the best 10s in the world. Let's not be shy about it. It's like him, Paul Andra and Ntamak, but Ntamak's out as well. So we could use this to our advantage, I feel. And like I said, with the way that France defend, they're going to be blitz, and we saw the Darcy Graham try against Wales. To be that Ali Price had seen that and just gone, look, there's Lee Halfpenny's going to cover out that wing, expecting me to kick off my left foot. I'll just think over the top of my right. That was a treat. So let's see how this goes. And with France's halfback pairing they've probably not had a lot of time together.
Mm.
And also they've had to cancel training, so they've not been able to blend this. You know, it could go either way.
It could. I mean, I suppose the question then is, can Scotland show that ruthless streak that they failed to show against Wales? This is an opportunity to come up against a team that's had minimal preparation, minimal time together. Scotland have had quite the opposite. They're a fairly settled starting 15. You've probably got a fairly settled squad. You've had people coming in, but not many significant injuries. Any other team would come and absolutely tear France apart for lack of preparation. And the big test for Scotland is whether they can do that, I suppose, John.
Yeah, I mean, this is a crucial measure of where Scotland are actually at in terms of our standing. We know we can beat teams on our day. We know we can put away, Italy at home quite easily. But this is an opportunity.
You say that.
I know. Look, the whole Italy thing. Like, we haven't lost to Italy in quite some time, right? So we'll shove that to the side for just now. This is an opportunity to really go over there, and similar to what Wales was in the autumn, this is an opportunity for us to go and put a lot of a history to bed, and we won't get a better opportunity than this. There's no doubt in that. So if Scotland do get on the scoreboard early and start to maybe build a lead, they have to show that ruthlessness. They have to put their foot to the throat.
See, one guy I would particularly target in the back, like defending wise in the back line, is Damien Pennell.
Yep.
He's a wonderful finisher.
Yep.
But he's a defensive liability.
He's everything you want in. He's like the Tim Visser of French rugby. He's everything you want in a finisher, but his defensive capabilities are.
Oh, he's rank rotten. I mean, they get pumped off England last year, and for one of Johnny May's tries, he's sauntering back. You're like, dude, that's your man. You're meant to be chasing him, and you're fast as hell. Go get him, but he's swaggering back like, I'll have a galvez and have a good. Just to like take some of the heat off John for being racist there. But we know he's going to be a threat going forward. But I mean, as per usual, it's all going to be about the breakdown, and particularly, I think one thing is if we can stop Greg Aldrich from getting over the gain line, because he always makes it over the gain line. He muttles yards out every time he carries. That's a big one for me. Is Richie back in the squad?
Richie's back in the squad. I don't think he technically left. And the announcement after the England game was it was only going to be one match. They thought he'd miss in the Wales game.
But they said that about George Horn in the autumn, and now he's had to go and get surgery. So I think that was one massive thing we missed last week. Was like we brought Blade Thompson in. Probably, I thought, to dominate set pieces, particularly because he's a good lineup jumper. He's like the Wales back row last week was actually quite small. So I thought, right, if we can crush them at set piece time, that'll be a big difference. But then George Turner need Blade Thompson in the head within about 10 minutes. So Blade had to go off, and we ended up having to reshuffle with Gary Graham, who, I mean, he's been playing 8 for Newcastle this year, but mind when he first got into the Scotland squad, he was playing at 7. So he's one of these kind of all-round back rows, and then him and Matt Fagerson give away like 5 penalties within the space of about 10 minutes of match time, either side of half time, and that's what eventually burst us. So we're interested to see what the back row setup is for this week.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll know tomorrow. Any more for the French game before we move on?
No, I think we need to be confident going over there that we've got the players, we've got the settled squad, as you rightly say. Let's forget about what France are doing. I think that'll be the message that Gregor will be putting to the guys. We don't really live, you know yourselves, having played well, you've certainly played Cammy, but you watch opposition teams arrive and you watch them walking past you as you're warming up and going, oh bloody hell, he's a big boy. Oh right. There'll be none of that. Gregor will be saying, let's focus on our game, and Scotland certainly have the weapons to put France away this weekend, and I'm just glad it's going ahead. I'm quite excited about it. Should be a good game.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'd say is wing option. We know Duhan's going to start on 11, but who's going to play on the right? Will it be Sean
Prince?
Maitland?
It's the Prince of Hoik, Iain.
Darcy.
Who would I think he would? I think he would have started against England.
Yeah.
If he'd been able to start against England, but we know he was out for personal reasons that first week.
But then
so
that's the thing though, Maitland. Whenever Maitland comes in, even despite his assholey behaviour for the Barbarians thing, man, that guy is just a class player.
He is, but he probably works more as a bench option than Darcy. So you start with Darcy, and you can bring Maitland on to cover the back three.
Yeah, or
then
you could stuck Hugh Jones on, because he can. I mean, like for example, if Hogg goes down, or if Harris or whoever's playing at 12, you know that Jonesy can step in. Or what we could see, which no one's ever suggested, and we've seen this for Glasgow, Hogg's played 13 a good few times for Glasgow. I mean, one of his first games, he's got a hat trick against Munster playing at 13. I'd rather have him at 13 than 10.
Yeah.
I'm going to kid on like I have not heard any of this chat. You guys just got blanked out there. I am not having Hogg at 13. I'm still in therapy about Hogg at 10. So like, don't start me on this, guys.
Put him at 12.
Okay, before John has a breakdown, let's move on. We're going to move on. We're going to do this now. Yes, it's Hands in the Ruck. It's our Any Other Business section of the podcast. We are still waiting on an update on Xander Ferguson's red card. That was everybody's Hands in the Ruck on our Super Secrets Facebook group from our patrons this week. So we will carry on refreshing as we do this section of the podcast. It seems utterly ridiculous that we don't have an update, but there we are. That's where we are at the minute. John, I'll go to you first. What's your Hands in the Ruck this week?
Yeah, so I was about to start, and it was when we were talking about Adam Hastings, and I managed to just zen myself for a second to save it for Hands in the Ruck. So, the reaction to Adam Hastings' return for Glasgow this weekend and subsequent recall to the Scotland squad. If anyone had said after that game in Wales, where we lost both our fly halves to potentially Six Nations ending injuries, if anyone had said to you, see by game 3, you'll have both Finn and Adam Hastings available fit and, they'll have had some game time behind them, every single person would have chewed your hand off, your shoulder off, probably, would have been halfway down your torso before they got full. It's ridiculous that people are like, oh, well, we need Jacko. Adam Hastings is the second best fly half we have. He 100% would have been in the squad had he not been injured. He is now not injured. He's now back in the squad. It makes perfect sense. People need to realise that we've been really lucky this time, Scotland often aren't that lucky with injuries. This time we've got really lucky, and we've got both our first choice fly halves back. Yay! Good thing. Not for Scotland fans though.
It's interesting. I mean, we don't see, obviously we don't get to see the Scotland players training. I mean, he used to have the fans open days where they'd run through a few drills and stuff. We don't see the training week in, week out. And one of the things Townsend talked about with Chris Harris, for example, was how well he showed up in training.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing to me, if you're comparing Adam Hastings and Jaco van der Walt, is that van der Walt hasn't got on the pitch in the first 2 games of the Six Nations, despite being on the bench. So he's obviously there for injury cover.
Yes.
But he's not seen as someone who should be kind of brought on the pitch to see the match out. He's not seen as a finish. What they call finishers in England? Is that what the England school call them? Finishers. He's not seen as somebody, a replacement that should be brought onto they can bring it on the pitch and change a game. Adam Hastings, on the other hand, I can't think of a time, and I'm sure somebody will tell me that it happened at some point, but I don't think it has. I can't think of a time when Adam Hastings has been left on the bench for Scotland. And part of that's been down to injuries, but I don't think there's ever been a time when there hasn't been injuries that he hasn't come on either at 10 and Russell's shifted out to 12, or he's gone at fullback, or he's somebody that can come on late in a game and make things happen. We haven't seen enough of Jaco, I think, to know that can't happen, but there's obviously something telling the coaches in training that it's unlikely to happen, and he's really only there to cover injury. And am I being unfair? I don't want to be accused of Edinburgh bias, even though I don't really care. I don't really have much time for either pro team.
No, but, when Jaco was called into the Scotland squad and started against Ireland, like Townsend made it like succinctly clear during his press conferences. The reason he picks Jaco is because Jaco is an excellent defensive 10, and we know that Jaco is, he's not a Finn Russell or Adam Hastings. He's a kicking 10. He's a sort of O'Gara style of 10. He's one who's he'll make you territory by kicking at corners and what have you. But like you said, he's not going to. If you bring him on with 20 minutes to go, he's not going to change a game with a wee moment of magic. He's not going to do a 20 flip or anything, whereas Hastings Russell can do that. Hastings, a couple of years ago, when he'd won the Young Player of the Year in the Pro 14, he'd broken more tackles than any other player in the league, and that includes the likes of Duhan van der Merwe, right? So, this guy has a wee bit of swagger. He can take it to the line. He can beat defenders. And especially with defences the way they are now, that's what you can, and that's especially with the way Scotland play, that's what we need. That's what we want. That's what Townsend wants.
Yep.
It's just then about who plays outside. Oh,
He's our Dan Bigger, is what someone's suggesting for Jaco.
Jaco, yeah. Aye, precisely. Yeah, he's a Rog or a Dan Bigger.
I think this is really unfair on Jaco. I think we all need to wash our mouths out there. He is not our Dan Bigger. Dan Bigger is a horrible human being. Jaco's a lovely man.
It's more in terms of pitch-wise rather than...
Can we just say Jaco? So is Ronan Nagaro, actually. He's a horrible man as well. Can we just say Jaco is our new Duncan Weir?
Yeah, I think we could say that much.
That's fine. Good. We're not comparing him to any Welsh or Irish former or present 10s in any way, shape or form who moan at referees. You might as well go full hog and just say, oh, he's our Johnny Sexton. Horrible people. Don't say that. Mean. I'm sorry,
Iain,
your name isn't up on the comments, so we don't know who is it that's actually.
I don't know what I'm said. They've been commenting from the Super Secret Facebook page because that doesn't tell us who they are. You see, when they comment from the Super Secret Facebook page.
All right, okay.
Do we have anyone on Twitch calling us arseholes yet?
Not yet. No. No, that normally happens towards the last 20 minutes when the Americans wake up, just start trolling Twitch to try and abuse us.
Give me some crispy rugby facts.
I like that guy. He's not been back though.
Oh. Was that guy? Do you know what's the guy?
I don't know. I say guy in just a generic person kind of way. Iain, what's at the hands in your ruck this week?
Mine was actually similar to John's because we hadn't really discussed it before. So when I'd kind of facetiously mentioned that we should get the cats at a rave back, one person on the Scottish Rugby forum decided that he should call Adam Hastings. I don't think he called him a traitor, but there was a lot of swearing in this, right? So this dude said that why should we pick someone who's decided he wants to F off down south? He's a wee F word. And then I was accused of being mentally deficient for even suggesting it. And you're like, oh, well, my whole point was, who else do we have to play 12 at the moment? Like Sam Johnson, who, like everyone who listens to this frequently knows that I'm a big fan of Sam Johnson. And yes, I would love him to come back in, but he's not fully up to match speed because he's been injured as well. Neither is Adam Hastings, right? But if you've got a bit of Finn and Hastings together, I think that would work against this French team. And when I tried to explain my point coherently and going, this is why I want this. I know it's a bit mad, but it might work. And then everyone else who comes in flying in goes, but Finn Russell's not a 12. Well, the first few times that Finn Russell played for Glasgow, he played at 12. Even one of my friends who is a like officially certified SRU coach, who might have played with Duncan Weir at Cambuslang, and also is a big Duncan Weir fan. He said to me years ago, Finn Russell is not a 10, he's a 12. I was like, I think we'll find out different. Obviously, he backed down from that, but when they're going, like, people who are arguing with me, or people who called me rude words, like, my point is, Finn Russell can do both positions to a degree better than the other options, and that was my point. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that the coach, when you ever they have the defensive coaches up for talking about the team and in the press conferences, they always speak really highly, actually, of Finn Russell's defensive work and the tackles that he puts in. If you watch him, he puts in some big hits on the field. He hits his rucks, he secures ball, he does all that work that isn't, it's not normal for a 10 to do it. And I think that's the 12 in him, right? Doing that and kind of doing his defensive duties. And what we look for in what Townsend, I think, has always looked for in a 12 is someone that can pass and kick. And you've maybe not had that in Sam Johnson. You had it in Pete Horn, but he wasn't quite the right fit. You've maybe potentially now got it in Cammy Redpath. But
I think particularly with like the sort of the seminal Finn Russell game when he like schooled Racing a couple of years ago. Like, Dan Carter's on the pitch, and you just sworn there was only one number 10 on pitch. Finn Russell put in a fantastic tackle on Camille Shah, and that's like 18 stone of no-necked monster coming at you, and he put him to the deck. Like, Russell, right? He's not a big lad, but we've seen him getting bigger since he's moved to France. He has his spatial awareness is such that he knows how to cover everything. And like we've often spoken about, Cammy, is when you look at stats, maybe someone's got a missed tackle against their name, but their point wasn't to make the tackle, it was just more to get in the damn way or just bounce them off and then let somebody else come in, someone like Chris Harris, to come in and nail the carrier. And that was my entire point. And I think that particularly Finn is better at defending now than Adam Hastings. Adam Hastings will put his neck and body on the line to tackle. He's not the biggest lads, but they'll fill the gap. And a missed tackle by them is not the same as a missed tackle from a forward who then allows a line break, for example.
If you look at Russell's work rate, just to finish that point, Russell's work rate when the tackle's made is so important. How many times have you seen Finn Russell get trapped in a tackle and not be able to get back into the line to reorganise? He's very, very good at get the man down, get round, get back in position, organise around him. He's I don't know, maybe he's just a slippery character and can get out of those. He doesn't seem to get trapped in, which probably makes it easier for him to, because Scotland were for a long time thriving over that off that turnover ball, and turnover ball is completely and utterly useless if your playmaker is at the bottom of the ruck. So he has had to get good at that, and he does work very hard at it. So yeah.
Well, if we look at where he's been in the last couple of games, he's been, when Scotland have been defended and receiving kicks in the backfield, it's been Hogg, Russell and Ferguson, normally the back three, to cover for the kicks. And that gives you a great option, because then it doesn't matter who you kick. Obviously there's Ferguson, kick to Ferguson, he'll still take the ball. But if it's Russell or Hogg that catch it, then you've got two very good kickers. Yep. So to have those options and that ability to have players like that really good under a high ball, someone like Russell. And that's not many 10s can do that. It's more of a fullback kind of winger thing, but not many 10s are good under a high ball in the way that he is.
Yeah, but he would just catch it and then start juggling. He'd be
Juggling,
like,
I know.
throw me more balls.
We should
Like-
probably at this point give a shout out. It was Ron Wilson, who is our Dan Bigger suggester. So I'm
Did
sorry,
Ron Wilson also then say that Duncan Weir is our Dan Bigger?
He did, yeah.
And then did he say that maybe Yako's Dougie Lowe says maybe Yako's the new Duncan Hodge?
See, I can get on board with that. That's fine. I fully expect Jacko to be Edinburgh's attack coach 12 years from now, and Edinburgh's attack to be completely and utterly static for the 26th year in a row.
We, as it stands, we've still no update on the Xander Ferguson trial. The trial of the centuries. It's ridiculous. I'm going to move on.
The delivery driver is now 2 stops away, apparently.
He's picked up a Wagamama's on the way.
He's got a Wagamama's.
We're going to move on. We're going to do. For my hands in the luck, I'm going to play this jingle, and not just to buy ourselves more time to see if we can find out the outcome of Xander's trial.
It's the legally mandated Lions chat. The legally mandated Lions chat. We've heard so much about it that it makes us sick, but we've still got to chat about who Gatlin's gonna pick.
Yeah, my hands in the luck's about the Lions. There's been a lot of talk this week, especially with the lockdown easing announcements down south of the border, about what's going to happen with the Lions. Australia apparently are going to pay and offer lots of money for the Lions to go over and play there, which seems utterly mad for reasons we've talked about before, like quarantining 30 players and staff in a hotel for 2 weeks seems utterly unmanageable. Plus, on top of that, it's not just going to be Australia they'll play. They'll then presumably bring South Africa across and maybe a couple of provincial sides as well. So that seems completely unworkable to me. The other option that's being talked about, which really boiled my pee this week, was the report in The Guardian that suggested that the Lions are looking at a home tour, which is fine. I haven't got an issue with that. But they're hoping the government will underwrite it so that if it doesn't go ahead, they can reclaim some money. Which, given that the Lions in essence is a massive vanity project anyway, just seems it's not the best use of government money right now to underwrite the Lions. And I know, we come at this with kind of Scottish thistle tinted glasses, that the fact that the Lions have done us over the last few years and all of that rubbish. But seriously, to go to the government and say, look, we're going to have this massive, really some blokes in red trousers are going to come along and be able to sit in some corporate boxes and watch some, a combined team play another combined team. And, some people have a nice day out, and a small proportion of the population might watch on telly. Those that can afford to pay for the Sky subscription that'll be on will watch it on the telly. And if it doesn't go ahead, can you please pay us a load of money? Just seems utterly ridiculous. I think the fact they've even thought about it, the fact they've even gone to the government to ask for that's just, I don't know, just it undermines the entire rugby values thing to me. Just, at a time like this, shouldn't be going cap in hand to something that's not even going to go ahead. Scrap the whole thing, let it die, and let's try again another 4 years.
I mean, you could say that the opinions on this are oceans apart.
Oh,
No, but the fact that people like guys who, the people who are proposing this, who are, on 6-figure salaries or high 5-end figure salaries, pleading poverty just to try and make some more money out of it. It's so distasteful. And you can, what time is it now? It's 10 to 10, but I know I'm not allowed to spare. But yeah, you can imagine what I'd suggest those people can go and do themselves, particularly as someone like me. Like I've barely made any money over the last year just because I can't get much work as a freelancer. So if they're wanting a government subsidy, and I'm not allowed to claim any kind of government subsidy, despite the fact I've paid my income tax from the ages of, I think I got my first job when I was 17. I think overall between the ages of 17 and 38, I'd maybe been unemployed for an amassed total of 8 or 9 months, and I've paid income tax all this time, and I'm not allowed any kind of sport. And then you've got these guys who make loads of money asking for it to be underwritten. Yeah, you can imagine what I'd like to go and do to these people.
For what is it's like a jolly. Let's be honest about the Lions. Is it, like at this stage, it's a vanity project. It's a jolly in the current climate. It's not going to South Africa because South Africa's, they're good. They're miles behind with a vaccination program. It's a huge risk to send people over there right now. It might. I think as an outside bet, it might go to Australia from a commercial. I can see that from a commercial point of view, but it just seems a bit daft.
That's ultimately all it's going to be. Like I'd seen someone talking about it in the context of the Scotland-France game and it going ahead or not going ahead, and there was a lot of opinions about who would want it to go ahead, who wouldn't. Ultimately, it will come down to money, and if money says, if the big money people say we want this jolly, this colonial nonsense to go ahead, then they'll try their best to make it happen. If the government agree to that, it's sickening. It's actually sickening.
A victory for people in red trousers and Barber jackets. That's what it'll be. They call Twickenham HQ. See,
I like the Lions tours because it's like, see, when you're a kid and you're writing up like if you say, do a Six Nations 15 or like I quite enjoy that aspect of it. And also like the fans, I mean, it seems like it'd be a great fun tour to go on. If you're rich enough to go and afford to be able to go and like have a 2-month jolly away somewhere, sounds mint, all right? But the fact of the matter is, we're not in that situation right now, and also it's a massive health risk. So
the thing I think if you're going to do it, if I had a blank sheet of paper and we said, right, given the current circumstances, what would we do for this summer? I would think you do all or nothing, and to the benefit of everybody, let's all go over to Australia, right? Everybody, Southern Hemisphere teams, Northern Hemisphere teams, everyone has a few games, and they like organize a mini tournament. Everyone isolates, everyone plays. Get New Zealand over, get Argentina, get South Africa over. Everyone has a few games, and at the end of it, you put together a Lions versus the rest of the world thing to cap it all off.
You could even make it even more interesting. You could have, I've seen someone suggesting as well. You could do that, and you could also have little sevens games.
Yeah.
So have the actual union teams putting out 7 sides to play against each other. Just make it a festival of rugby.
The Summer Nations Cup. Alan McDonald suggesting the Summer Nations Cup, which I quite like.
Yeah. And we don't need the klaxon, Alan, because it's hands in the ruck, mate.
Hands in the ruck. We don't get the war klaxon out during hands in the ruck.
No klaxons allowed.
What if we do like a British and Irish Lions, and then a like France and South Africa select, and then a New Zealand, Australia, Pacific Island select, or New Zealand, Australia, and then Pacific Island select. A quad tour.
You'll have Daily Mail readers saying that the New Zealand Pacific Islander select is just New Zealand, Iain.
And they'd be wrong.
Yeah.
As well we know.
So that's hands in the ruck this week. There's no look. I think at this point we should call it. We're not going to get a decision on Xander Ferguson tonight. Xander's in his bed, tucked up tight with his bassoon. I think he plays bassoon.
He does play bassoon.
Yeah.
Xander's on the phone to someone in Bolivia trying to arrange a deal.
Political asylum.
He's holed up in the Bolivian asylum in London, and he's not coming out until he's allowed to play again.
Justice for Xander.
Xander leaks.
Alan McDonald, it's like Tommy and Goodfellas. It's going to be like Tommy and Goodfellas, isn't it? Xander, could you come over to Dublin, please? We're going to add you at the Hall of Fame. Oh, brilliant, guys. Youngest player ever in the Hall of Fame. You seen Xander recently? Nah. Yeah. The interesting thing, I think what I would say is at this stage, aware that by the time I even click publish on this podcast is going to be massively out of date, but it's taken a long time.
I assume that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it means they're going, they're seriously considering it, or it might just be that they're trying to think of like the worst possible punishment. Like Xander now has to like wear an England top for every single match that he's missing.
It's going to be like when they march Cersei through the streets in Game of Thrones. It's going to be like that. Under shame.
Oh, and the Xander's revenge will be fierce.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of people pointed out that bans can get worse after appeals, so they are taking a bit of a gamble. I don't know. I mean, it'd be. I think with the appeals, we get the full judgment, so we get to see how everything's weighed up. We get to see the arguments were made, so it'd be quite interesting to see that, because I don't know how you can argue against. I don't know how you can debate whether he hit him on the head because he hit him on the head, and that seems to be the entry point.
What? I mean, like I said last week, like the main thing is, like, see if you just asked two lay people to look at the O'Mahony incident and the Fagers incident, you said, which one of these is worse? They would say it's the O'Mahony one, because was it Thomas Francis? Yeah, Thomas Francis like sat up in the ruck, and O'Mahony went in there and shouldered him right in the face.
And it comes, yep.
Whereas Xander, Hogg popped Wyn Jones up a wee touch just as Xander started entering. Right, fair enough, it was dangerous. But if you're trying to tell me that O'Mahony's foul was lesser than Fagerson's, you're mad. Because it was worse. And then just because Xander Fagerson had the gall to say, I don't think it was a red card, they give him a further week. It's not fair. It's unfair.
Do you want to play a wee game, Ian, just before we finish? So you said earlier on that France has vastly more professional rugby players than Scotland, which is obviously true. So Scotland has around, so in terms of registered rugby players, Scotland has around
38,000, isn't it?
So on this count, it's about 50,000, but yeah, I think that's including women.
That's including kids. Is that from the scrum system?
No idea, mate. I'm just taking this for it. It's pretty much wacky. So, no facts here. France has approximately 500,000 registered players.
Yeah.
So, about 10 times the amount of players that we have.
I mean, there's a guy called Robert Rees who writes for Last Word on Rugby. He'd done a whole thing about this a wee while back, and what he'd taken stats from World Rugby, which were 3 years old, and also I didn't understand the terminology of it, because it said like registered players and then also sort of like registered members. So it seems to be that anyone who is a registered member of a Scottish Rugby club was included.
Right.
Whereas the scrum system, which is the SRU have used for the last 2 years, I think it was around about 40,000. But that included people who may have been double registered,
nice.
women and kids. And I was like, dude, where do you get these numbers from? Because these are completely different from what I've.
So we've actually only got 1,200 potential male players.
And some of them are like 50. Just like,
yeah.
I was speaking to my plumber this week, and he plays league, and he was saying he was kind of trapped swimming to play Masters. He said in the Masters you get different coloured shorts in league. So if you're wearing gold shorts, you kind of get tackled.
Yeah.
And I said, I quite fancy wearing the gold shorts then. And he said, no, you have to be over 70. So I said, maybe I'll take that up in a few years.
There's a really good rugby club as well, based up in Scotland, called Try Rugby, who I've played against a couple of times, and they're an inclusive rugby club. And it's different scrum caps the guys wear. So if there's a certain colour of scrum cap, you have to tackle differently and stuff like that. But it's just an amazing club and great stuff. So all this inclusion, this is often very woke of us.
It is, and within the permittable woke window.
Exactly.
The woke window, that's what we'll call it. I think we'll call it a night. There's going to be no updates on Zandban. Like I said,
under an hour and a half. Go.
Everyone's tucked in. it's time for bed. We'll get the Zandban news tomorrow, and probably John and I, or whoever else might be about, might pick that up on the Only Fins podcast. We'll pick it up next week anyway, as well. I probably need to start on work on a jingle for Xander Slander, and we'll make that a regular feature, Iain.
Oh, the rumours I've heard. Apparently, he was in Morrison's and took something from the fridge section, then put it back in the fresh fruit and veg bit. What's that?
I've heard that he goes to the self-service salad section and overfills it.
Ooh. I've heard he uses the self-checkouts and doesn't pay for his bags.
I used to do that with football stuff. See, in Scotland, have qualified for a football tournament. Right? Now, a couple of years ago, as a wee joke thing at work, I was like, right, tell you what, we'll buy football stickers and try and fill this album up. So then I went to Sainsbury's and we'd use the self-serve till, and I'd be like, 1 pack of stickers. Oh, it doesn't recognise 1 pack of stickers. What if I put 4 packs of stickers in? No more. Yes.
I mean, you realise, Iain, before you get excited, you do realise that they give you those stickers in Sainsbury's for free. And if you've got kids, they just hand you as many packs as you want at the till.
I don't have kids.
You just have to save your kids. I used to get them before I had kids. They said, do you remember your kids? They have some stickers.
Are you now suggesting that I should go and kidnap children to go and
you don't have to. You just have to say, all you have to say is, I've got kids, and they'll give you stuff. They'll give you stuff like that at Sainsbury's.
Xander Ferguson kidnaps kids to go and buy football stickers.
Is required.
You're overthinking it.
They do not give you free football stickers.
They do.
They don't.
They give you free stickers. They give you if you go to the till at Sainsbury's, they normally give you the free stickers for the album that you get free. And say you get the album, and then they give you free stickers and free.
No, you get 1 free pack of stickers, then you have to buy more. You can't fill up a 800-player football album with free stickers.
I've never tried, but I'm just saying that they normally bung me a couple of free packs. The cashiers normally bung me a couple of free packs whenever I've been before.
Oh, you get bunged a couple of free packs.
Because they know, they're like, oh, that's that Cammy for that rugby podcast that slanders Xander.
there's Cammy getting his incidental
benefits are free. I just give it. Do you know what it is? It's the raw sexual magnetism I give off at the till at Sainsbury's. That's why I get the extra stickers.
Basically, same as me in Murrayfield toilets, mate.
And on that note, that is it from us from this week. We'll be back next week with a review of the France game. But for the meantime, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Iain and John.
Night, folks.
Ciao.